It is pretty much, like I said, a conversation you don't hear regularly, but thanks to Look Up TV, every single morning on Thursday, 10 to 11, we do the what they term out of the norm. Dr. Terry, we're so glad to have you.
Thank you.
I was excited. I have been excited for the longest time, knowing that I'm going to be having to talk about IVF and understand it more. So this morning is actually it. A lot of questions will be streaming in as well, so I hope you're open to it.
Yeah, I'm ready for that.
Now, it's always very difficult to introduce doctors who wear different hats. You know, obstetrics, gynecologists, but you're here in both capacity.
Yeah.
So Dr. Elgay.
Eglai. Yes.
Thank you very much for creating time. Karibu.
Asante.
If you wanted to open this conversation in your own way, as far as, you know, IVF is concerned, and not really bringing in the terminology and definitions, but just setting the pace in as far as statistics are concerned and how then Kenyans are receptive of this modern way of making children, what would be your opening, powerful remarks?
Okay. So IVF is in vitro fertilization, just to put that in perspective, because some people might be wondering, what is IVF?
Yes.
Yes, and infertility is a big deal in this country because it affects up to around 4% of our population. And you see, 4% of our population is a big number. And most Kenyans now are open to seeking these services.
Okay.
Because now it's widely known now, relatively. And so people are open to it. The only most limiting issue is the cost of this treatment.
That's right.
Yeah.
And we're going to be getting into that.
Yeah, we'll get into that.
We'll look at the costs, we'll look at the myths.
Yep.
We'll look at your fears, and of course, how far the treatments go.
Yeah.
These are the questions that have been coming up, really, Dr. And you have already talked about IVF, and you've said, people are pretty much receiving it, being positive about it. But what are the indications for IVF treatment? Let's go straight into the agenda. What are the indications for IVF treatment?
Okay, so let me just define infertility, please.
All right, sure.
So infertility is when a couple has tried to conceive for at least 1 year. Okay. 1 year, yeah. So indications of IVF include female and male factors of infertility. So I'll discuss the female and then the male.
Yes.
So the female factors that might require IVF treatment, one of the most common is blocked tubes. Okay. And blocked tubes mostly is caused by infection. Yes, genital infection in the genital region causing blockage of the tubes, and therefore these people are unable to conceive because the tubes are blocked and the eggs, so the passage to the uterus is not possible.
Sorry to interject. When you say tubes, do you then mean fallopian tubes?
Yes, I mean fallopian tubes. Okay. I mean the fallopian tubes, yes. So that's like the most common cause indication for IVF. And then also we have advanced reproductive age. You see, women, most importantly, we are born with a specific number of eggs, by the way, which reduce with the years So with advancing age, the ovarian reserve, the ovarian reserve goes down up to menopause, where now the ovarian reserve is depleted. So we find women in advanced reproductive years, and now because their ovarian reserve is either diminished or depleted. Yeah, so those are people also who require IVF. Another factor is the male factor. Yes. Severe male factor infertility, where we have either very low sperm count or zero sperm count. And in such cases where we have zero sperm count, most of these times they might require sperm donation. Okay. Yes. Okay. Yes. And also other indications for IVF include we have technology where we can do genetic screening on the embryos. So some people with genetic conditions, and they want that to ensure that their offsprings do not get these genetic conditions, we can do genetic screening on the embryos, and thereby eliminating that, selecting the embryos that do not have these genetic conditions. Okay. Another indication is women who require surrogate, gestation surrogacy. Okay. And some of the indications of gestation surrogacy means where you have another woman carrying a pregnancy for another. So either someone who went through surgery and the uterus was removed, or some people have conditions where they are born without a uterus.
What about conditions where uterus actually ruptures?
Okay, if the uterus ruptures, it can be repaired. Okay. But if the repair is not possible, then it can be removed. Okay. So in such a case, such a woman will have to undergo IVF because she doesn't have her own uterus. So we get her own eggs, we fertilize them, and we implant in another woman's uterus. Yes.
Interesting. It's getting interesting as we continue. And of course, allow me to pick on something on the various types of IVF treatments. Yeah. Someone would say, well, which ones are common? Which ones would you say it's not a good idea? Which ones even exist? So when I went through a bit of research articles there about this, what I picked, they said, though most of the people are still aware of the common IVF treatments available around them, according to this research, there's certainly more to it. Yeah. And of course, Dr. you'd let us know if this is misguiding or correct. And they're saying there are other types of IVF treatments like the natural IVF.
Okay.
And that's what they're saying. And the mild IVF. Now, in your own, way of putting this together, because the reason why I'm reading that is because everyone runs to Google.
Yeah.
Yes.
Dr. Google.
I have headache, I'll run to Google, and it's going to say I have a big tumor in my brain. Or they're going to say I have meningitis. So that is actually to show the viewer that what you Googled pretty much brought what I just read. But we have you here to pretty much put that in perspective when you say types of IVF treatments, especially if you want to localize this, agenda and discussion today. Which ones are available in Kenya before we even cross over to the coast?
Yes, yes. Okay, so IVF is one of assisted reproductive technology. So maybe we should ask, what are the assisted reproductive technologies available in the country? Yes. So IVF is one of them. And IVF means we stimulate the ovaries to produce eggs, and then we get the sperm from the man and fertilize in the lab. So the word IVF, in vitro fertilization, in vitro means in the lab, outside. Then that's one. And then another treatment for fertility, assisted reproductive technology, is intrauterine insemination. Okay. That's a bit mild because...
Well, that's what they call mild IVF.
Maybe. I don't know. I know those terminologies of mild and natural. Okay. They're not like clinically used. Okay. Yeah. But now intrauterine insemination is whereby we stimulate the ovaries of the woman to produce not so many eggs, 1 or 2, and then we prepare the sperm, the man produces the sperm, and we inseminate, we introduce this sperm into the uterus of the woman, and then we let the natural process, we let the sperm go in, swim, go and fertilize the egg.
So all you did is introduce
the sperm and also ensure that there is an egg that's growing and also that egg has ovulated. Yeah, those can be medically done. So
those are available in this country?
Yes, those are available in this country.
Available and acceptable?
Yes, they are acceptable. And for IVF, there's we can also, additional technology on IVF is pre-implantation genetic screening. Okay. Whereby, once we create the embryo, we fertilize the egg in the lab, it can be tested so that we can see the genetic composition of this.
Very important.
So that we see chromosomal, is there any problem? Because such things can cause miscarriages. Yes. And also, that pre-implantation genetic screening can also give us gender selection so that, this is a male embryo, this is a female embryo. And that's also one of the indications of IVF, because some people maybe have 5 children or whatever. So they want a specific gender. Okay. So that's also something that's doable in this country.
I like that you have touched on what kind of people require these services just before I ask that question. Before we get into the types of people that actually need this IVF services, you touched on getting to know the gender and the chromosomes. And there's been a very, conflicting issue, especially for the woman who is the... how do you call that, incubation, quote unquote, during the gestation period for that particular, pregnancy period. And the question of rhesus, are you able to indicate the rhesus positive, rhesus negative? Because I understand there's some war there that sometimes could even cause to stillbirth and miscarriages. Is this something you consider during the IVF? Is there screening for that?
Yeah, so that will be pre-implantation genetic diagnosis. Okay. And that can be done, actually. Yeah, there's some technology that's equipped for doing that, yes.
All right, I know you have questions flowing on the comment section. Do not tire. I'll be going into that shortly so that Dr. can also answer your questions, including people asking the cost and the safety.
Okay.
for the mother,
yeah,
and for the child.
Yes.
And before we go into that, we were to talk about those who require these services. I know we touched on aspects of infertility,
yeah,
those who actually want a specific gender.
Yeah.
Which other people or types of people or clients are we looking at as far as IVF is concerned?
Okay, so we have, this is very controversial though in this country.
Okay.
Same-sex gender, when they want their genetic offspring. So they might require IVF if it's females or males, because they will need extra gametes from either the female or the male, depending with what.
And I agree, that's very controversial.
And it's very controversial.
We might not even get to that deeper.
I don't think it's even, I don't know who does that, because
Yeah.
where I work, we don't do that.
Yes.
But I'm just saying the general people we are looking at.
Yes.
Yes, and also single women mostly are coming in for these fertility treatments, and because we can use donated sperm, so we have such clients.
Okay.
Yeah, and also this, for women especially, or even men, preservation of fertility, whereby you can freeze your eggs. The woman will come in, will stimulate her ovaries, retrieve them, the eggs, then freeze them, so that it gives her flexibility whenever she wants to now get pregnant. Maybe she's ready, maybe, you know, career and childbearing at the same time. So by the time, because most of the clients I interact with,
yes,
I have conversations with them, and I'm asking them, did you ever try? Because someone is now 45 towards 50, and I'm asking them, did you ever try? Or then they're like, oh, I was in school, I was just doing traveling, career, or I was waiting for the one, and now it's late. Your ovaries, your ovarian reserve is diminished, or it's depleted.
With age as well.
With age. So IVF can also be used for preservation of fertility, where a woman can walk in now at 30, 35, whatever age, we get the eggs and preserve them, so that later when she's ready and her ovaries now, our ovarian reserve is depleted, but we've kept some eggs for her. Yeah.
Now, you made us very curious this morning, and we're going to go into the process.
Okay.
A lot of people say, well, give us the definition, give us the course, but we want to understand this as it is.
Yeah.
And thank God we're not Googling today. We want to understand what exactly the process of IVF entails. And Dr. if you may, give us this process as extensively as you can, so we understand. I know there are laymen watching all the way from the grassroots. If there's need to make it as simple as possible, we will be having the diagrams on screen as well to just share with you what exactly Dr. is explaining as far as the IVF, process is concerned. Dr. you can kick us off on the beginning and to the end in your own way.
All right. So we start with the woman, whereby we have to. Can I just talk about the natural first?
Yeah,
just for a few minutes. Sure. So normally in the ovarian cycle, when we do our menstrual, we get our menstrual cycle. Every month, normally a woman produces one egg. And that egg, then if there's sperm available that month, it can be fertilized or not, and they can get pregnant.
Yes.
So for IVF, we want to stimulate this ovary with external medication, so that these ovaries are producing more than just one egg. We want at least 10 to 20 eggs. Yes. So we give hormones, exogenous. We give hormones a treatment, hormonal treatment, whereby these ovaries are stimulated, and they produce many eggs. At the same time, we give another treatment so that we are ensuring that these eggs are not ovulating, because we want to control the cycle ourselves. So we give medication for that. And once the eggs are ready, we do some ultrasound to check. Once the eggs are ready, we retrieve those eggs, through a procedure where the patient is sedated. It's a transvaginal procedure. Yeah, just a day procedure. They retrieve the eggs, and then we take the eggs to the lab. Once we have the eggs in the lab, the spouse or whatever, whoever is producing the sperm, produces the sperm, and we fertilize them in the lab. And that's why the name in vitro fertilization. That is fertilizing in the lab. Okay?
Yes.
So once we fertilize these eggs in the lab, we make what we call embryos. Okay? So the embryos in the lab, we grow them in the lab. It's called culture. We culture them in the lab for 3 to 5 days, depending with who is your doctor. 3 to 5 days.
Okay.
And then we return them back to the woman's uterus. That's called embryo transfer procedure.
That you're returning it back to her body?
To her uterus, yes.
All right.
Because now
her biological uterus.
Yes, so she's the one. You can't culture a human being in the lab to the end.
We really need to understand there's a lot of myths right now.
People say test tube babies.
Yes.
They're not test tube babies really.
Okay.
But that's a layman way of looking at it.
Okay.
But once the embryo is ready to be taken back, that's a maximum of 6 days. We take it back to the woman's uterus. Or if we are not taking back to her uterus, they are frozen. Because if some people will freeze their embryos to use them later. Yes, yes, yes.
I know you have a lot of questions, guys, on even how long can you have it frozen?
As long as, because the freezing is done under liquid nitrogen, so there's no issue of power outage or something. So they can be frozen for as long as possible. In where I work, we had a patient coming in, we had frozen her embryos for over 10 years, and she actually got pregnant.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, keep sending in your questions as far as this is concerned. Dr., if you allow me, let's continue to talk about the process.
Yeah.
But a few myths are coming in. People need clarity here.
Okay,
and I'd love to hear your thoughts on the myths and misconceptions around IVF.
Yeah.
Myth number one, which I think we try to, clarify, but of course for the sake of the viewer. Myth number one, someone is asking, IVF is only for infertile couples. They hear that a lot. But I think we clarified, but just for the sake of them, again, it's a myth.
Okay, IVF is treatment for couples who are, for infertility.
Okay.
Yes, but it can also be used for preservation of fertility. If a woman wants to give birth later, so she can preserve her embryos or her eggs, and then later or if someone is going to undergo cancer treatment that will affect their ovaries or their testicles, so that they're interfering with gamete production.
Yeah.
So that also is an indication, because now we can preserve fertility for these people. You don't have to be infertile first. All right. Yes.
So there's positivity to it as well. I know another question is coming in on the side effects. So don't forget, we have in line conversations on the cost and the safety of the child, as well as side effects if there are any. Now, myth number two, you can do IVF at any age.
Oh, okay.
Is it a myth or is it a fact?
Okay, so I don't want to say yes or no to that, but we've had the oldest patient in our clinic in Kenya doing IVF at 65, and she got pregnant. Okay.
Now here's a question, and I know that at 65 you take back the embryo into her uterus.
Yes.
So and she's able to handle the gestation period.
Yeah, this is one of the extreme of cases. Extreme of cases. But so you have to look at also, can this person carry a pregnancy? Yes. Because hormonally we are going to control this. We are going to give you medication that is going to support this pregnancy to the end. So that's not an issue. The issue is this person able to carry this pregnancy to the end? And also, what is this pregnancy predisposing this person to? Because pregnancy already predisposes someone to things like high blood pressure and stuff like that. So it's a balance. So that was one extreme case, just one. Okay. But we have patients who are 50-year-olds, 50-something-year-olds, and they still do IVF. As long as the person is healthy, like they don't have any comorbidities, like hypertension, diabetes. Okay. Yes.
Another question would follow. Fine, you can carry the baby. You're going to be able to sustain the pregnancy with the hormones that you medically know how to. Yeah. But there is a question of, do they probably have normal delivery? Because then it depends with your age. And I know this is out of the conversation, but it is questions arising from the conversation.
Okay, so most of these people will have a cesarean delivery.
All right.
Most of the time. But if there's no indication, if like a 55-year-old and there's no indication for a cesarean delivery, then she could deliver normally.
So it's not always that you have to go through the CS.
Yes, not always. Yeah.
All right, myth number 3, and I like the fun fact about this. It's really exciting to hear you demystify this. Yeah. They say IVF causes you to have multiple births. Honestly, what they're saying here is in the past, IVF labs typically transferred a number of healthy embryos to increase your chances of a live birth. However, technology, they say, has advanced in the ensuing decades. In fact, transferring multiple embryos may increase your chances of miscarriage or premature birth. But that aside, multiple births, 5, 4, 3 children. These are ovaries, and you said you would introduce, you want multiple of them, produced. So what are we looking at? Is this a myth or is it a fact?
It is a fact,
okay.
But this is, so when we stimulate the ovary, and then, for example, we get 10 eggs, then at the end of the day, once we fertilize, at the end of 5 days, we have 5 healthy embryos, or 6. We do not transfer all the 5.
All right.
We will transfer, so depending with the age of the, maximum we transfer 3, but depending on the age of the patient, or did they use their own eggs or donated eggs, then we will look at it and balance. Has this person ever gotten pregnant before? There are some factors we look at.
Okay.
So we can either transfer 2 or 3 embryos. So we don't transfer all that we have if we, but still, the fact that we have transferred 2 embryos or 3 embryos predisposes the person to getting multiple gestation, because any of those embryos could implant, although each embryo has a like 25% chance of implanting.
All right.
So why we transfer more than 1 is to increase chances of this person at least getting a pregnancy.
At least.
Although it's not direct mathematics that we say if we, it's not direct, it's a bit complicated.
Okay.
Because every embryo has individual capacity to implant and make a pregnancy or not. Sometimes we do embryo transfer of 3 embryos and the person does not get pregnant still.
Okay.
It's not 100%.
So it's not 100%. Just one last question. In this first, few minutes before we take a short breather, I appreciate that you talked about the rare cases of the 65-year-old who was the oldest that you ever did the IVF for successfully. Yeah. But in the number of, multiple births, what would you say you've hit or Kenya has hit in the records? 5 children?
Not really.
That could be difficult.
Yeah, 5 children. Because you also want to avoid multiple pregnancy. So the maximum we do is 3. But you see sometimes,
triplets.
Yes, an embryo can divide, and maybe you did 3. An embryo can divide, and you get getting 4.
Okay.
But those are rare cases.
All right.
Yeah, those are rare cases.
All right. Now your fears are actually in check. 24 minutes into the hour. Dr. is still here really to talk about IVF. If you have any concerns whatsoever, Look Up TV gives you this opportunity. In the next few minutes, we come back to continue discussing then the cost differentiation, also the safety of your child and yourself, how healthy they will be, because that has been a concern as well, what to do, what not to do, how long it would take you, and if you can always have IVF done for you for maybe 3 times in a row. We'll find out shortly after this break. Don't go too far away. Good.
Vera Beauty and Fashion College is focused on being the leading technical and vocational training institute in the region. Our team possesses in-depth knowledge and extensive experience in the industry, offering thorough training in cosmetology, hairdressing, interior design, creative arts, training of trainers, nail technology, and fashion design. With branches in Nairobi, Thika, Meru, Eldoret, and now in Mombasa, our courses ensure that learners are completely equipped with knowledge, competency, and employability skills. Enroll today to be a part of a center of excellence.
After a year packed with top-level events in various clubs, we are back to where it all began. The Corporate Masters Golf Series is back at Royal Nairobi Golf Club.
Golf is really growing in Kenya also.
With a touch of luxury, presented by Fumba Town. Make it possible to own your own beachfront property all the way in Zanzibar. Accuracy on every shot you take, made possible by Innoverse Group, the leaders in business and financial advisory, assurance and business technology advisory. On October 1st, you can soar with the eagles, courtesy of Angela Aviatrix Charters. Come, hit the reset button with some scotch made available to you by the Glen Levate from Pano Ricard, Kenya. Register your corporate team to get lucky with the Bet Lion Team Award. Lady golfers, you have more reason to sign up for this event because Godrej, with their mega growth, will be at the cost to help your hair march your long drives. Mega growth calls upon non-golfing ladies to come take part in a golf clinic at the golf range. Come take part in the 7th Corporate Masters event with Kenchik taking care of your breakfast to ensure that we're hitting them long and straight. For those who can't make it, catch all the action on Lookup TV, our official media sponsor. Corporate Masters, represent your brand. This event has been brought to you by
Yippee! Kamata plotting at 349k. Oh yes, for only 349,000 Kenyan shillings, you become a plot owner at the Great Oasis Gardens, Nanyuki. The Great Oasis Gardens, Nanyuki is located along the Nanyuki-Rumuruti Road, only 11 minutes from the Cedar Mall and right opposite Mount Kenya Wildlife Estate. This is the best place to establish the getaway home that you have always dreamt about. For every 349,000 that you deposit or pay as installment towards any of Optivant's plot of land, you get 10k cash back instantly. Jaza basi twende Nanyuki. Bigger is indeed better.
Hapa ndio nimefika nyumba ya boxing.
It had to be preordained.
Welcome back. This is the Morning Drift, and it's all about Health Thursdays today. We have a few minutes to wrap this up, and if you're just joining us, we have been having a conversation around the in vitro fertilization, and that is a fertilization that happens outside, all right, the woman's body. Now, if you are trying to catch up, in vivo fertilization happens inside or within the woman's body. Now today we are concentrating on the in vitro. Now most people have said they totally don't understand how this works. Many people have rejected it over the years. However, Daktari is making it very clear that so far, years down the line, people are beginning to find this quite normal. All right, now if you have been dealing with infertility or have been doing your career, going back and forth and actually just planning your life differently, you might want to listen in and even then send in your comments in our comment section live right now on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and on YouTube. Welcome back. We have gone so far talking about the people who actually need these services, quite a number of them, not only the couples, you know, battling infertility. Age, you have said, can be just but a number as far as this is concerned. We've also talked about, you know, the process and also had videos on air for that. But we want to look at the ethical issues. Not everybody can handle IVF.
Yeah.
professionalism.
Yeah.
You do know that there has been a lot of contention around something we hardly discussed, especially here, abortion,
Yeah.
worldwide,
Yeah.
because of issues like ethics. And when it comes to mother-child, mortality rates for the maternal and the infants is still a global issue.
Yeah.
So when we talk of IVF,
Yeah.
it is really, really vital that we look at, the ethical issues that surround IVF, and some would call it controversies.
Yeah.
Dr. just walk us through that.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so one of the ethical issues that surround IVF is gender selection.
Yes.
Because most people have looked, because with IVF, we are able to do, with additional tests, do gender selection.
Okay.
And most people have looked at it as you're playing God, like we are bypassing natural selection.
Science.
Yes. So that's something that is really, because for example in India, I think gender selection is not allowed. Even doing an ultrasound just to see what child is not allowed. Yes. Another issue with IVF that has a lot of ethical considerations is surrogacy, gestational surrogacy, whereby we have someone else carrying a pregnancy for another, for medical reason most times. And because there's an issue of, is it altruistic or commercial? And so can I just walk in and say, I want to be a surrogate because I want to make money? Or am I walking in to be a surrogate because I want to help someone?
Okay.
So that's something that is a bit of ethical and controversial.
Although, because sorry to interject, I feel like that's something that happened in some sort of way in the African culture.
Yeah.
In a way that it shouldn't be conflicting.
Yeah.
And so I don't know which country you touch on, because I remember there are times in a family or in a homestead, the first wife, second or third, for whatever reason, might not have been able to conceive, so they bring their sister. So that would be a different style of surrogacy, if you want to put it that way. So the contention is the commercial.
Yeah, versus altruistic.
Okay.
Although, and also, because this carrying a pregnancy already puts you in a situation where you're predisposed to complications of pregnancy.
True.
So there has to be a balance between, are you helping and are you putting yourself at risk?
Okay.
Although in Kenya, commercial surrogacy is actually acceptable.
It's legal.
Yes. Okay. The rules are not yet. Yes, surrogacy is done in this country. Yes. So, but the rules are institutional dependent.
Okay.
Like on the cost and stuff like that. And there's also the psychological aspect on this surrogate mother.
True.
I'm carrying a child that is genetically not mine, and I know at the end of this pregnancy I'm supposed to give this child away. So that's also some controversial issue.
Okay.
But we have that's why we need a psychologist.
Correct.
And a lawyer in IVF setup, whereby these issues can be addressed. Yeah. Another issue is controversy on IVF is on the extra embryos. Who do they belong to? For example, there's a couple and then they separate or divorce.
Even the frozen ones.
Yes, yeah, I mean the extra ones.
Yes.
So how do we go about dealing with these extra embryos and this couple, maybe they're separated or divorced, or, So that is also some, we don't have, I don't have answers for that.
Okay, they are just controversies around it.
Yes, around it.
All right.
Yes.
So where do we get the answers from?
Okay, so this...
Good question.
That's why the law has to be passed. It's being worked on.
Yes.
And it will address such things so that we have a straight, we have a way forward. We know this is, when it's like this, then this is how we handle it.
All right.
Yes, and then also there's an issue of egg donation. It's very common because most women, one of the indications for IVF treatment is advanced maternal age, and thereby there's either diminished ovarian reserve or the quality of the eggs, because with age the quality of the eggs go down.
Yes.
So some girls who come to donate their eggs, they want to know, does it affect my fertility? And also donating your eggs, and in the future knowing that you donated your eggs somewhere and you're thinking maybe your children are out there somewhere. So those are things that some people might not agree with. But that's a practice that is done in Kenya, and it's actually acceptable.
All right, and I like that you have set the pace for things to think of food for thought.
Yeah.
If you're going to be involved or are thinking of actually carrying out IVF, these are things that you might want to think about. Have your doctor bring a psychologist so you actually have, you know, patients spoken to.
Yes, yeah.
Give consent,
Because,
fully understand what they're putting themselves in for.
Yes, yes, because this is a process that, and also the issue of cost with IVF, we're going to discuss that.
Which we should right after this one.
Yes. So, you know, it's not 100%. So that's why you need a psychologist, because it's a psychologically taxing, this process, the whole of it.
Yes.
So that's why we need a psychologist to just to take these patients through the psychological aspect of it, so that by the end of it, regardless of the outcome, they're able to be okay mentally. Yeah.
Because this is a lifetime decision.
Yeah.
And just to talk about cost, I saw one of the comments here that spoke really vividly on the cost. So I'm just going to keep scrolling through to find that question. But if I would paraphrase that, James Kinyua was asking how affordable the IVF process even is, or even treatment. Is it affordable? And we both know. We almost both know what the answer is.
Okay. So that's one of the limitations of this process.
Yes.
Because for an IVF cycle, depending, because now you see there's no law to come up with a consensus that this is the specific cost for IVF, because now different institutions charge different prices.
Okay.
But I'll put it at roughly 500 to 700,000 per IVF cycle. Yes, depending with the institution. Yes.
All right, James Kinyua, I hope you got that right. And of course, just to read that saying, how affordable is the process? 500,000 to 700,000 Kenyan shillings.
Yeah, Kenyan shillings.
How many institutions can carry this, you know, IVF process? Any hospital?
Not really.
Yeah, because people, you know, grassroots people need this kind of information, this kind of exposure. People actually, because you know how commercialization goes, you don't want to put people in the wrong hands.
Yeah.
Who handles this?
This IVF treatment should be handled by IVF specialists, and we have IVF clinics in this country. So
enough?
Not enough yet, but yeah, we have several in Nairobi. I think I'm not sure about the rest of the country. Maybe.
Okay. All right. So there we have it. Let's go closer into. We've talked about limitations. One is the, you know, the cost, but there are other limitations that you might want to touch on this morning.
Yes. Yeah. We have already talked about the cost and also the multiple gestation.
Yes.
Those are major limitations. And also one of them, the most devastating limitation is when the result is not successful. You've gone through the process, it's expensive, and then because IVF is not 100%.
Okay.
So the success rate is not 100%. So that is one of the most, I would say, devastating outcomes. So that is a problem. Yeah.
And it's not 100%. How long does it take? Let's go into even more details. How long is this process?
Okay. So this process will take up to 3 weeks.
Okay.
Let me put it at 1 month. But now, once we had gone through the process of stimulating the ovaries, and we have gone up to where we have implanted back the embryos, we have transferred back the embryos into the uterus.
Yes.
Then after that, we'll require 12 days. Then we do a blood test to check if is there a pregnancy. So then, once there's a pregnancy, then we can continue with the pregnancy antenatal follow-up.
Now the normal process.
Yes, then the normal process picks up. Yeah. So yeah.
All right. Now we were talking about the safety for the mother, and of course I want to go into that because there are questions around that, also surrounding it as a myth.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to pick this. It's a question that has come up, and they're talking about it as a myth as well. So we really need you to bring clarity on IVF is the only way to have a baby if you're infertile, of course. There are other ways. Are there other ways?
Yeah.
Yes. Let's talk about the children. You know, the people say that children who are gotten through IVF are pretty much going to have complications here and there. You do know you've had, you know, such
I have.
Myths, just to create clarity.
So the difference between IVF and normal conception is just how the fertilization took place.
Okay.
So for IVF, this egg was fertilized outside, maybe because the fallopian tubes were blocked or whatever reason, and then they've been taken back. So if that grows and becomes a pregnancy and a baby at the end of it, then the only difference between this baby and the baby that was conceived normally naturally is how the fertilization took place.
And that's the concern, Dr. because this is outside, that means
in vitro, yes.
In vitro, that means something can happen in between the lab and my body that might have been that could be prevented if it was done in vivo, like within.
Okay, so so just to put it out there, that there's no difference between these children. If there was an issue, if something happened, then that pregnancy might not even occur. If something tampered with this embryo, then probability of that pregnancy occurring is very low.
All right.
Yes. So just to give it perspective, the first time I saw an IVF baby, I can't even explain how elated I was. And that's when I decided this is what I'm going to do.
Okay.
Yes, because there's no difference between, you cannot tell unless the parent tells you this baby was conceived through IVF, this one was conceived naturally. There's no difference between these children. Yeah.
I like that.
The baby, yeah, and if there was any genetic malformation or whatever, it could happen still.
All right.
Whether this baby was conceived naturally or by IVF.
So by no means are these two babies different. So if that has been your concern, there you go. But there is a concern about the medicine you use, the medication.
The hormones, yeah.
The hormones.
Yeah.
And the myth here comes out, whether it's a myth or a fact, let us know. They're saying fertility drugs or that process, the IVF process, can cause cancer.
Ooh, okay, no.
So you're saying it's a myth?
It's a myth.
Why?
Because how this, for example, the stimulation of the eggs, okay? We are using hormones that are, function similarly to the body hormones, just that we want to control this stimulation process and we want more eggs than usual. So this medication does not in any way cause cancer process.
Okay.
Yes. Because it works the same way as the hormones in the body, just that this one we are controlling it from outside. Yeah, that's
so there's no relationship whatsoever between IVF and cancer?
Yeah.
As at now?
Yeah.
All right, let's just go back to other, someone would ask then, we've tried to clarify the myths because there's a lot of negativity tagged to it for those who really don't understand the process. But even as you get into what I know you want to say, there are advantages that you just want to clearly put out there for those who are watching today of the IVF process and treatment.
Just before we go to the advantages, just one thing about how the hormones can affect the woman.
Okay.
There's something called ovarian hyperstimulation syndrome. So this is where the ovaries are stimulated beyond what we desire, beyond the desirable, and it can cause some symptoms for the mother.
Could you say some of these symptoms? Maybe somebody is undergoing that already and they do not know.
Okay, so this, it could cause a lot of fluid being produced inside the pelvis, which can be, which is easily managed.
Okay.
Yes, and it can cause just being bloated, vomiting. Those are things that can just be managed. Yeah, that is one of the major side effects of IVF treatment. Yeah.
You know, when you said that, I pretty much remember that I picked a number of those. If we get a chance, we'll go back to actually understanding some of the side effects. Are you going through, or are you undergoing IVF? I'm giving you a few minutes, say 10 or so, to share your concerns with Dr. Dr. We're giving them free consultation this morning.
It's okay.
We will keep you anonymous if we must, but I don't think there's anything wrong about it. If you might need help in understanding some of the symptoms you could be seeing and are concerned about it, let us know as well in the comment section, because this is why we are here this morning. That is why we bring the expert on set on matters health. Dr. we want to keep going. I know it's a few minutes to go, and you might want to add on a few things as well as we take in the questions. But we were going to talk about the advantages, right? So that people understand. Technology isn't here totally to just distract you and destroy you. There's something about IVF that could be positive to you and your family. What are we looking at as advantages?
So advantages of IVF treatment for fertility, it has higher success rates compared to other fertility treatments like insemination. So if a couple has been trying to get pregnant for a long time, then it's good that they get checked so that if they are candidates for IVF, then it will improve their chances compared to any other treatment, because there are so many people are even doing herbal treatments. There's a lot going on.
Yes.
So the best way forward is just see your doctor and get a proper checkup, and then if it's IVF treatment that is indicated, then that will improve their chances of getting a baby.
Okay.
And then also, IVF has an advantage of allowing women, especially, or couples, to plan when they can get pregnant, especially for the women, career women, that is. So, and also in preserving fertility. For example, if a patient is going to undergo cancer treatment that will affect the ovaries or their testicles, IVF is able to preserve their fertilities until once they're done with the treatment, and then they can get pregnant.
All right.
Also, there's an aspect of gender selection.
Oh, yeah.
People can plan and decide, I want 2 boys and 2 girls, you know, whatever.
That sounds exciting, but I'm not speaking for you
it's
guys.
an advantage
Yes.
in this age because you can plan and decide. Gender selection is actually an advantage, although it's a controversy on the other
As
side.
well.
Yes, but for the people looking at that, then that's an advantage that they can get with IVF treatment.
As you're speaking, I think there are countries that need IVF more as far as gender selection is concerned. I might not mention them, but you do know that there are countries where we need a little bit more men.
Yeah.
Is it? You know yourselves, maybe it's Kenya, I do not say it. And there are certain countries where they actually need women to give birth more.
Yeah.
Just a lot of issues surrounding fertility. But of
Yeah.
course, just to try and wrap this up, there has been a question here on, and really, truly and vividly, we can see technology is picking up so fast.
Yeah.
So fast. Now
Yeah.
there's IVF, people are beginning to receive it. But what is the future like? I mean, I know from where you sit,
Yeah.
You can easily tell
Yeah.
where we are headed,
Yeah.
and maybe prepare us earlier on psychologically to not jump off it if it's something good.
Yeah.
What do you foresee, or what does technology then have for us as far as, you know, the future of IVF is concerned, or even fertility as a larger concept?
Okay, maybe I'll start with the fertility.
Okay.
We have seen with the passing years that there's a lot of infertility cases.
True.
Like, for example, we get young girls coming to donate eggs, but before that we do, even young boys, we do young meaning adults, 18 and above. Yeah, so we do some tests to check their ovarian reserve or their sperm count, and we find that there's an aspect of premature ovarian failure. We are getting girls between 18 and 25 with the low ovarian reserve. There's a test we can do to check the ovarian reserve. And young men with low sperm count. So this is something that we need to look into and see what's affecting the fertility of our young people.
Yes.
That's something that, so the infertility cases are rising, and it's we need to look into that.
Okay.
Yeah. So regarding IVF, IVF has been there. Like the first IVF baby was born in 1978. Louise Brown. She's like 40-something years old. This pre-implantation genetic screening has been there for so many years. So whatever is ahead, most of it now is experimental.
All right.
For example, there's something called designer babies.
Wow.
Just like designer bags. Anyway.
Just like designer bags,
No,
to say that on the low.
So whereby we can edit, because we have the embryo. This is, all of it is lab. It's not
Daktari,
yet.
we're just about to wrap up this, and you're now beginning to shock my audience.
So
you can edit.
It's not done now. Please let me be clear.
All
It's
right.
not. It's done
This is
on
what
mice.
we're
It's
seeing.
experimental.
Okay.
Whereby you can edit and this embryo and select certain traits like intellect.
Wow.
So maybe that's in the next 50 years. Who knows? And also. Yes, those are things that, experiments that are going on.
Yes.
Then there's something called stem cell, that's a bit more detailed.
Okay.
Whereby people with low ovarian reserve, we can get some cells and modify them to produce eggs or sperm. Still experimental. It has been experimented on other things, not on gametes.
Okay.
Yes, but that's something experimental yet. Yeah. And also, just for what is available now, we hope that it becomes more available, even in public hospitals, even so that it's more affordable.
Yes.
For more people, because population that is requiring this treatment is actually increasing. So that's something that we look forward to. That's a positive thing we look forward to, that this treatment can be more affordable with time.
All right.
Yeah.
Can we go back to the design?
Okay.
Because now it's exciting as we wrap up on a light note, and I hope you have learned a bit about the IVF treatment. We have demystified as many myths as we can. We've talked about the cost, and you have told us without, trying to hide it or, make us feel good, that it surely can be expensive.
It is
and really just to bring that up to, bring you up to speed, it could be between 500,000 to 700,000 Kenyan shillings. And you've also made it very clear that there are clinics. All right, most of them private, however.
All of them private.
All of them private. Yeah. All of them private.
Yes,
and that's a wake-up call to the government.
Yeah.
If we need them to include the public and also try and lower the amount of money that is needed. Yeah. But now we go back to the design, the future of this. How would you feel? I'm going to throw this back to the viewers as you prepare your closing remarks. Yeah. How would you feel if you're able to, have a child whom you pick traits for? Like they're more calm. They're more
athletic,
like you pretty much just click, smiley, talkative. What?
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
I just did that. We're wrapping up. What would you say as we close, as far as the public in relation to the IVF? Yeah. You have a minute to do that. And I believe it's going to be exciting to hear your closing remarks.
Okay. So I just want to encourage every couple out there trying to conceive.
Yes.
And I always try to tell people, get checked early. If you've tried to conceive for 1 year and you're below 35, or for 6 months and you're above 35, then get checked early so that if there's an intervention, then you can get assisted early. And just to demystify one of the myths you brought up, that the babies that are born from IVF or natural conception, there's no difference. The only difference is how the conception happened. So don't fear getting help, getting treatment because of myths. Get to your doctor, get checked, get the assistance that you need.
All right.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
Make that personal decision, but have the information. Thank you very much, Daktari, for your time. Please come again.
We have a lot to talk about.
We have a lot to talk about. I like that. We set the pace right here on the Morning Drift every Thursday for as far as your health is concerned. Look Up Business is lined up. Quite interesting. I can't wait to see what SIMBA Elijah Charles KIAGE has prepared for you today at exactly 11 a.m. and it will run all the way to noon. But even as I close, I want to remind you that time and health, as was once said by somebody, are two precious assets that we don't recognize and appreciate until they have been depleted. Please take care of your health just as much as you manage your time. Don't wait until it's depleted so you can look for the Daktaris. If you need any contact, get in touch with our social media and we'll be able to be of solutions to you and yours. My name is ANKEY DORICE, but stay powerful. Have a good morning.